All right, we're going to welcome those who are just joining us. We'll just take a minute or so to allow everyone else to join, and then we'll get started here in just a moment. All right, well, hello and welcome to another installment of our Wireside Chat produced by CTI Connect. Today, we are joined by Keith Hyde, who's the National Sales Director for 5G at VIA Photon. Keith, do you want to go ahead and please tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the company VIA Photon?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joey. And thanks everyone for joining us today. As he said, I'm Keith Hyde. I've been in the wireless industry for about 15 years. The majority of my time was spent in the macro world supporting the big four carriers and all of their contractors. And that ranges from anywhere from down at the ground all the way to the top of the tower, inside the shelters, and also inside their data center background. VIA Photon, who I'm with now, is based out of Aurora, Illinois. We manufacture and design a wide assortment of products. We're more of a solution-based company, where we're not just set on certain product lines. We try to work with our customers to find solutions that they are having pain points with. They want them better, they want them faster, and more available out to their installs. Some of the products we do, typical fiber jumpers, simple stuff, all the way up to complex hybrid trunks and fibers that are fiber all in one, going up the poles. And for our data center, we do the same thing. We're also doing things like OHE or OVP distribution boxes, stuff that has surge protection in it for the top of the tower, for protections out there for lightning, for Mother Nature. Our main focus here at VIA Photon is really want to simplify the experience and leverage our cutting edge US-based manufacturing technologies to make our customers' lives a little easier. Things that we do are different. We may have robotic stuff happening in our production so that we can do things faster and quicker and more precise on an everyday basis, so that there's not ups and downs on who's working on what. We have products that are moved around our facility by robots so that things can get through the system quicker. All this lends itself to a way that we can get product out faster to our end users and our customers.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much for that. So today, given that Halloween is right around the corner, we'd like to share with our viewers some network horror stories that come from the field. Many of the folks in our space, I'm sure, have lived through these scenarios, and it's going to be our goal today to show you how a company like VIA Photon and the products that they offer can save you from an unnecessary nightmare. I'll also remind our audience that at any point during this discussion, if there's any questions that you would like addressed, just type them into the chat and Keith and I will address them at the end of the show. So our first story comes from a gentleman who operates a WISP in Arkansas. And like so many horror stories, it begins with a terrible storm. As he looked out his window, watching the storm roll in, his mind is fixated on the equipment at the site that's 150 feet above the ground on a metal tower. The first thing that came to his mind is, how much surge protection do I have at the site to protect the very expensive radio equipment that is way up there and at the very reaches of his copper lines? Do I have enough LPU in place, both at the top and at the bottom, that he knows should be there? He calls his in-house tower climber, the veteran, who tells him that yes, there's sufficient LPUs in place. As the storm comes to an end, he does what any operator would do, and he checks the radios remotely, and he finds that yes, they're all still up. However, upon further inspection, he sees that his radios have rebooted themselves, which can only mean one thing. that the LPU units that took a surge are not operating properly and now have to be replaced. Now comes the task of going out to the site and replacing all the bad LPUs and completing a full tower inspection to make sure that there's no other issues with other LPU devices that are distributed across the top and the bottom of the tower. So it'll be quite a job, but to our operator and lead climber, it is work that is part of just the day-to-day horrors of WISP operation. So Keith, as you listen to that story, let's dive into VIA Photon solution, and that may have prevented the surges or may not have prevented the surges, but otherwise maybe would have put the operator and the tower climber at ease, knowing that the job that lay before them would prove to be much easier.
Perfect. Yeah, this scenario we hear a lot. We get a ton of calls for things like this, and to be honest with you, that's kind of why we designed this solution, was to try to ease some of the minds of the WISP that are out there. So we bring our expertise from the macro world and try to roll them into the WISP world so that they are, they feel better at night, because we get a lot of these guys call and say, there's a bad storm coming, what do we do? The nice thing, ROHE OVP box, LPUs, some like to call it, we call it that, and distribution box, because inside of it has multiple things. There's connectivity for fiber as well as the power side, but has surge protection inside of it. Our SPDs are MOV rated type SPDs. And the nice thing about our SPDs is that they can take multiple strikes. Now, no one knows exactly how many strikes SPDs typically take, because Mother Nature is unpredictable, right? But the goal is to be able to take enough strikes that protects that equipment that is plugged into it. And if something was to happen with our SPDs, which SPDs fell, you can't change that. The nice thing is that operator doesn't really have to worry about going back out, sending a climber to go do a whole bunch of stuff at the top, spend more money on things like a whole complete LPU units, do installs in there. They literally can climb the tower if there was a failure. And they'll just show, I don't know if you can see, hopefully, but this is kind of one of our SPDs that are inside the box. They literally could come up to the top of the tower, pull this insert out, take it with them, put a new one in, and they're done. That's it. It's very simple. There's no complicated installs. The climber won't be there. It'll take him longer to climb than it will be to do the work. The other thing, it gives you alerts. Inside of our OAV, we have alarms in there. So there's alarm capability. If the installer wanted to have alarms set at the bottom, they would know if there was a failure at the top. These SPDs are designed to be closed, open, closed. So that way your equipment is protected, but will stay up. So you don't have to send someone up there. If, let's say it took 3 or 4 strikes, the equipment's still going to be running out there for the end users. So at the end of the day, he doesn't have to stress this. Now, sometimes things happen, but he knows his time is going to be well spent just going up and popping in a new, almost think of it as a breaker in your house that you have to put in. And the one trick that I always try to tell everybody is when you're doing your installs, the most important thing is grounding everything. So inside our box also, we have multiple ways of grounding. That is the trick, right? Is to getting Mother Nature as quick as possible to ground. And if you can do that and you ground properly, along with our surge protection devices, you're going to be able to sleep a lot better at night.
And the surge protection too, also there's there's slots. So a lot of the boxes that you build out have ability to expand into more redundant circuits, right?
That is true. So we also protect each leg. And the other thing we do in our box is it's modular based. So let's say you have that guy wanted to only protect 3 radios at the time. We can modify that with multiple SPDs in there, and then he can add at a later time if he wanted to, more radios down the road. Mm-hmm. He can also pre-do. We see the most common OHE OVP boxes purchased are standard 6 radio protection, so 6 RRUs. But we have folks that use this for more. They may use this for something different in there, but they still got protection there. We also have capacity for another box for up to 9 RRUs. So, if you for those listeners out there that might have more than 6 radios in the tower, you can always reach out to CTI and they can hook you up with some non-ROU part numbers as well. That means everything at the top of your tower is protected. And we do have some that utilize our box top and bottom. So it really depends on the install. You can't have too many. And I think most radio manufacturers really require surge protection in line somewhere. The ones that I've seen manuals, they like to have it at the top and at the bottom. So when having it at the bottom, our mount is simple. We have 3 ways of mounting our OHE OVP at the top of the tower or at the bottom. It can be vertical, horizontal band on the poles, or it can have banding. There's also, you can screw it to the side of a wall if you had to. So there's multiple ways of using this inside of it. The other thing is inside that box is separated fiber and power. So you have a tray that lifts up, friction tray for the installer. He can get to the power side for the SPDs. It's all neat and inside of there. It's not really crowded, so it's easy for that installer to get to and work on.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that kind of leads us into our next story, which touches on some of that cable management. So our next story comes from an operator in Texas who was planning a very large install on a tower that they recently acquired access on to provide service to a new community. They would approach this tower like they would many others in their network previously. The design would involve running a 12 AWG DC power cable up the tower to each radio to provide power, and also running a 24-strand fiber trunk up the tower to each radio to provide the data connection. He knew that this build would be particularly challenging as all those individual cables take time to run and secure, but that was all part of the job. As he sat down with his team to plan the install, a sudden chill ran down his spine. It had occurred to him that the tower they had just acquired was done so by way of a lease. That meant that not only would they need to run all the individual lines and a boatload of cable management hardware, but the tower owner would be charging additional fees for each cable run, significantly increasing his OpEx costs at the site. Nonetheless, he had to move forward, knowing there were anxious customers awaiting service. In the coming weeks, night after night, he tossed and turned in his sleep, having nightmares of giant checks chasing him that he would have to sign, until one day he discovered Via Photon, and he would soon learn that all of his cable management fears would come to an end. So Keith, you have a personal relationship with this operator. Can you tell our audience how you were able to end the nightmares and ultimately make his installs far easier in the future?
Thanks, Joey. Yeah, definitely. This company has got a lot of towers. And like you said, some of them are owned, some are leased sites.
Mm-hmm.
The issue with lease sites, and I think everyone knows this, is a lot of these RITs, American Tower, Crown Castles of the world, want to charge you per run, right? Real estate space, they like to call it. So anytime you can save on things going up the tower, you're saving on that real estate space. The other thing you're doing, having less runs of a tower, is less hangers, less time it takes to be on the tower, less people it requires to be on the tower. So we worked with them to supply them with a hybrid cable. The hybrid cable having power and fiber all in one jacket. It is also armored. Now, that's a key because this person in Texas was getting a lot of their fibers on the site that are currently there eaten by large birds. So they were constantly going out almost every 90 days on some of these sites and replacing fibers. So you can imagine that the cost associated to running fiber up a pole, which the fiber is not extremely expensive, but a climber's expensive. It takes time. The site goes down. There's a lot of issues that happen there. So with our solution, he was able to yank all of that off the tower, install a hybrid cable up the pole, which means he had hangers just for one cable going up the pole. The typical size is about, I think it's just under an inch for this cable size. So you hang hangers up the pole. So you've got less cost there. You got 2 guys that can do this install instead of multiple because you're trying to get around the side of the poles. You're up the pole, and inside of this, we included some extra fibers in here. Now, some people say, well, why do you need extra fibers? Not all installers know how to work with fiber. So things happen. They break things on the ends. And, when you're pulling something up and you're at the top of the tower, let's say you're pulling a 4 fiber or 2 fiber and you break a fiber in, you're kind of in trouble and you got to re-pull a whole new one up. Well, having extra fiber in there means you don't have to do that. If a contractor was to step on one of the ladder or however he's, at the top of the tower, he's got extra fiber there. The other thing it lends itself to is that you're allowed to have growth now. So let's say you're installing something that is PoE based, but you need fiber up there. You already have fiber in our distribution box because it's running up inside the trunk. Now all you got to do is run your Cat 6 up the pole for power for PoE if you're needing to run a PoE device that doesn't take DC. So he fixed a lot of problems by one solution. The other things he's done, he's actually started streamlining things for his install. Before, all the installs, whether it be owned or leased, and his installers were doing them, or they were contracted installers doing them, the installs were all different. There weren't really any set standards, as you want to say. So he was able to now standardize on an install that now every site will mimic. So no matter who you send out to that site, it's going to be the same if they go to the next one. That in itself tends to save a lot of time and money because you don't have to worry about what you need to take out there. Do I need to take new hangers out because they're smaller cables? What's on this pole? Now he knows exactly what's on this site. So that gives a lot of savings for the company. It makes him feel safe because he knows he's not just spending all this money on all these extra home runs up the pole. And now he's got room for growth inside of this. The fiber up there. And the other thing I'd probably mention earlier on our OHE box comes standard with 36 fiber connections or 18 pair. So do we add, do we change that? No, it's always set that way. And people say, well, why do you have that? I mean, you may not need that. Well, that's the easy part for us. It's very it's inexpensive to include, and it just makes sense to help for the future growth. Because that was one of the things we really wanted to kind of do with our box, is to have something that our WISP we're working with can grow with and not have to think about adding something later down the road. I'm trying to think back at your other question. I think I answered them all. Was there anything I missed there, Joey, for his?
No, I think that was it. Obviously having surge suppression, having fiber, having power all in one centrally located place and nice and clean is really just, it's a lot of the installs you see in the carrier world are like this. And so we're seeing a lot of folks in our industry move to a carrier grade solution like this for obvious reasons. You talk about cost savings when you start to divvy up all the costs of all the individual surge suppression units and all the lines that you're running, and with copper what it is today, that your solution seems it justifies itself day in and day out, as from our experience. So
well, let me add one thing. So we are seeing a lot of that, and the nice thing is that with it being a complete solution, right? The OHE OVP box at the top of the tower, the hybrid trunk, you can order per site. The nice thing is they're custom links, so you don't have to think about stocking a certain size in your warehouse. We can customize those links to if you need 325 foot or you need 150 foot, right? They work on every type of structure out there, whether it be water towers, monopoles, freestanding. It doesn't matter. It still works because of our mounting brackets capability. And the hybrid cable being armored saves him from having to worry about those birds eating through his stuff, right? It also lasts longer. The one thing we didn't mention is that he told me even the fibers that didn't get eaten were degrading over time. So now that he's got an armored fiber that is designed to be out there, he's not going to have that issue down the road. So it gives him that safety there.
That's perfect. Yep. I noticed that there was a Kathy who raised her hand. If you want to put your question into the chat, that would be helpful, and we can field that at the end. And just to remind everyone, anyone who has a question, you can submit it, and we'll take it at the end. I want to move a little bit to our partnership, Keith, because CTI Connect has a history with you in developing this box.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about and how we kind of catered this solution to some of the folks in our industry?
Definitely. Yes, when we first started this relationship with CTI, we discussed and worked with your engineers internally to come up with a solution. Not to say there weren't OVP or surge protection boxes in the market. There are, but they needed something different. And that's why VIA Photon is so, well, we're good at what we do when it comes to designing new things, a better mousetrap, faster, and be able to produce it at a time, on time for you, so that your lead times are not those 30 to 60 weeks we're starting to hear these days. So worked with your group, looked at some things that were different with a lot of input from your team and our engineers. We came out with a solution in under 30 days. And then we had a working product in 45. So that in most of companies is unheard of. Typically, you're talking about a 6-month process on average. Between patents and everything that goes along with it. It takes some time, but we're good at what we do. And we have so much expertise here. We developed this solution with this flip up tray. And Joey, we might want to find a way to get the video to the folks to see this, because there's a great video showing our OHE OVP box in this environment. You can see the little things we thought of, the flip up tray, this friction. When you're at the top of a tower and it's wind blowing up like that crazy, you don't want to have something, you got to take a lid off and have it dangling, or worry about the lid slapping back and forth. So this fiber tray we have inside is a friction hinge. It stays up. They can work on their power section. They can flip it down. They can plug in their fibers. They can close the lid, the door, lock it if they need to put locks on it, and they're gone. Our box is designed to stay up to at least 200 miles an hour wind. So it's very strong up there in the top. But one of the other thing was size. We had to find a way to make this all in a compact size that didn't tend itself to be some of the bigger. So when you start adding all this in, you start getting these boxes that can be, 16, 18, 20 inches wide. We had to keep it compact. Your group gave us great guidance on how and what size we needed to make this box. And we were able to come out with our OHE OVP. And a lot of it, we thank you guys, because it has been a great relationship with CTI.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let me take a look here. It doesn't look like we have any questions from the audience, so I think we can probably go ahead and wrap this up. I think it was a really great discussion today. We covered a lot of points. If anyone of our audience members wants to get more information about this box, you can contact your sales rep at CTI. You can contact our sales department to understand how this solution can just help you better your installs and better your overall success in the field. It's a great product. I love working with it every day. And thank you so much, Keith, for taking the time with us today to explain it. Is there anything else you want to wrap up with, or?
No, I want to thank you guys. I've worked with a lot of partners in my time, and you guys have been outstanding. The knowledge base in CTI is important. It's helped me, more so coming from the macro world, understand the needs of the WISP because of your team. They were able to, point us in the right direction when it comes to the OHE OVP box. So we made a product that is top notch, that is wanted everywhere now. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for allowing me to do this. If there's a time to do another one, just let me know. I'm available.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again to everyone for joining us. Reach out to us anytime with any questions on VIA Photon or any other solution. And have a great day and a happy Halloween.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.